for the best coverage of the Jazz, Utes, and Cougars is right here on The Zone. This is JJ and Alex, presented by G2G Bars on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Welcome back, JJ and Alex, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Jeremiah Jensen, Steven Sylvester, sitting in for Alex Kirry. If you're an NBA fan, and you're a Utah Jazz fan, it's going to be a fun week. You got a Game 7 of the NBA Finals on Sunday. What a gift that is. And then the NBA Draft on Wednesday night. Lions season will be over. We're going to find out how it's all going to shake out. And there's so much drama that's being predicted and expected. We're going to get into all that next with Eric Spyropoulos of the Utah Jazz and NBA.com. The finals and the draft are the cut at 5 o'clock.
It's time for the biggest story of the day. This is what made the cut with JJ and Alex on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Give Trajan Wealth a call today, your local financial fiduciary, 801-899-7600, or visit their website at TrajanWealth.com. And as always, the cut's brought to you by G2G Bars. With all natural ingredients, no preservatives, and plenty of protein, G2G Bars are perfect for anyone who needs a tasty and nutritious boost. We thank G2G Bars for sponsoring JJ and Alex each and every day. We welcome our guest in, Eric Spyropoulos of the Utah Jazz, NBA.com. Does a great job covering the Jazz and the NBA. Eric, we got to start with the NBA Finals because I don't think a lot of people thought that the Pacers had it in them last night, but they did. We get a Game 7. What are your thoughts on what you saw in Game 6? Were you surprised that the Pacers responded the way they did?
I think that the normal answer is to say that you would be surprised, but I don't think with this Pacers team, anything comes as a surprise anymore. Yeah. Especially, with Halliburton getting injured in Game 5, you didn't even know if he was going to be able to play, and if he could play, what would he be able to do? And he actually, I thought, looked pretty good, all things considered. And I think, the Pacers made a couple of adjustments. They weren't picking up full court as much. They put a lot more pressure in the half court. Again, their role players off the bench, like TJ McConnell, they just continue to play really well, especially at home. So we'll see if that carries over to Sunday in Oklahoma City. But the OKC, they just look kind of out of sync pretty early. Shea was turning it over a lot. They weren't hitting threes. And Indiana got out and then took advantage of it. So, with this Pacers team, you can never, ever count them out. And now they've given themselves a chance if they play one really great game to win an NBA championship.
Man, I try to tell people all the time how important the crowd is, right? Both of these environments, both Oklahoma City and Indiana, on TV, it looks insane. What have you heard about how great both of these home crowds have been in the NBA Finals?
Yeah, you mentioned it. Just watching on TV, the amount of times that Mike Breen is saying that he can't hear the whistle when he's commentating the game says it all. But I think that's the best part. One of the best parts about these finals is, these two markets and their fan bases being able to kind of have this moment in the national spotlight and show just how great they are, showing up and making each arena pretty much deafening for everyone involved, including people watching from home. So I think, OKC, you win as many games as you do to set yourself up for the opportunity to have Game 7 at your arena. And so hopefully they're going to try and take advantage of their crowd, which is also, which has been just as incredible, if not better.
When you look around the NBA, you've seen players with calf strains end up with Achilles injuries. Kevin Durant. Recently, Damian Lillard, Jason Tatum. I didn't think that Tyrese Halliburton was going to run the risk. I actually thought he was going to sit out. I thought they were going to be really cautious and not let him play. What does it say about him that he was willing to take that risk and he went out there last night?
It says everything. I agree with you. I think there's such a high level of risk with that injury in particular that, even – and the other thing is not only was he going to play, but if he went out there and played and just couldn't be himself, what kind of effect would that have on the offense? Because he is kind of that engine. And, like I said, within the first few minutes, he obviously was not 100%, but he made a couple of plays, I think the most important thing was he was still making those types of passes, those kind of, a little bit high-risk passes, those really advanced passes that were allowing the offense to function even if he wasn't at his best. And then he hit a couple of threes in the first half, and that was just kind of enough because the rest of his supporting cast was able to kind of take over and help him. But yeah, I mean, I think it just says everything about Tyrese and just, that team, that mentality they have to just never give up and never quit. He is their leader, and he went out there and showed why.
Yeah, man. Could you talk about kind of roster depth and everything going on? JJ and I were talking a little bit earlier about the contributions of Connolly and Nembhard. Like, how important, when you get this late in the season, in the finals, it really comes to light these complete teams, right? And so both from Oklahoma City and Indiana, how complete are these teams? How important are these role players in stepping up in these big moments?
I mean, massive. I think, the conversation for, basically even in these playoffs in the past few years has always been about like, oh, well, you're going to have to shorten your rotation anyways in the playoffs. So like, make sure you have your best 7 guys ready and go. And I think these two teams are showing that that's not necessarily the case. I mean, I think the Pacers, one of the huge advantages they had in their run to the finals in the East was just having more depth and being able to kind of outlast their opponents because they play so hard, they play so fast that they've got so many guys to be able to play that system without, everyone having to play 40-plus minutes and being worn out. And OKC, I think the big talking point with them all season is that their team is so complete from a defensive perspective that they really don't put anyone out there on the floor that's like a defensive liability for the most part. Shea is probably their worst defender in their starting lineup, and he's pretty good for for an MVP player.
They're historically good defense.
Exactly, and that's because they don't really have any weaknesses, and that goes 10, 11 deep. And so I think that's what you're seeing is that depth, I think might have been underrated coming into these playoffs, and I think maybe moving forward, teams might look, especially with the new CBA and the financial restrictions on, big salaries, teams might be looking extra hard at like, how can we get a really good 10 or even 11-man rotation versus just a 7-man rotation?
We don't get Game 7 very often in the NBA Finals. In fact, I think this is the 8th time. Sorry, let me see.
Yeah.
In the last 50 years. Oh, this will be the 9th. I'm sorry, the 9th. So this is rare. This is a rare opportunity. The Nuggets pushed the Thunder to 7 in the semifinals, and the Thunder ended up blowing them out on their home court. How is this going to be different, or is it going to be different?
I think it'll be different. I mean, pretty much all Game 7s have been close from my recollection. And I think the other thing is, we just kind of talked, that Nuggets team was very top-heavy, right? Like that was Nikola Jokic, Aaron Gordon playing with a strained hamstring somehow, Jamal Murray and a couple other guys, but they didn't have the depth that this Indiana team does. And also I just think that this Indiana team is another level of just like grit, toughness, never give up, playing hard, playing fast. Like the Pacers style of play could cause a problem for a team on any night, even in a series like this where Oklahoma City's obviously, well adjusted and scouted them. But the Pacers can catch fire from deep. They can run you off the floor. They can play good defense. Like I think it'll be different because this Pacers team is just much deeper and plays a different style than the Nuggets do.
Well, it is Game 7 on Sunday, so before the weekend starts, let's hear it. What are your anticipations of how that game flow is going to go? Earlier, I was talking about how important those those middle quarters are, right? Is this a Game 7 that could possibly have an overtime? That's what I dream of. I dream of a Game 7 going into overtime, right? And does this have the capability? What are you expecting, and what do you think the ultimate outcome of this Game 7 on Sunday is going to be?
I do expect a close game. I think overtime would be amazing. I'm not sure we're going to get it, but I do think it'll be close. And, I think as much as I kind of want to just like lean fully in on this Pacers run, I do feel the home court advantage for the Thunder has been really significant in the series so far. I mean, you've seen a pretty stark contrast into how the Thunder have done on the road versus at home in the playoffs. And it's carried over to this series. And, some of the Pacers role players like a TJ McConnell, Obi Toppin, like they haven't been as good, I think, in OKC or on the road than they have been at home. So I do think that could be a factor. Like if the Pacers go to their bench and they can't either maintain an advantage or create an advantage, what does that do? And there's also a potential for Tyrese to, feel worse actually on Sunday with the injury after might swell up playing on it than he did last night. So I think I'm going to go with OKC in a close win for the championship.
Let's turn our attention now to the Utah Jazz. The NBA draft is on Wednesday, Eric. It's one of our favorite times of the year. It's so much fun. We love the draft. And I also love everything else that's going on around it with all the buzz about trades that could happen and all the transactions that could take place between now and then. But I'll start with the draft. One of the biggest stories right now, I think, is Ace Bailey. And if he falls, obviously that would impact the Utah Jazz in some way, whether they have to decide to take him or not. What do you make of the stories coming out about Ace Bailey? How much of it is real and how much of it is being manipulated by those who release information, as we usually see? Of course, it's lying season.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the biggest thing is that, there probably is a lot of truth to some of this, but also, certain teams want certain things out there to have them fall to them. Like I'm sure the Nets would love Ace Bailey to fall at 8 and, they would draft him to take that risk. And I'm sure there's plenty of other teams that might even think about if he falls past a certain number, do they trade up for him? Things like that. I think there's also probably, some legitimacy to, his camp trying to get him in a place where he can play a ton of minutes, have the ball in his hands and put up stats basically from day one. I think, it is interesting, right? If he does fall to 5 to the Jazz, do they take the bet on his upside talent? Do they try and use that as leverage to get someone to trade up for him? I think, the draft really does start at 3 with the Sixers, in my opinion, and where Ace falls is one of the hottest storylines.
Is Ace Bailey good enough for there to be this much drama? What is it about Ace Bailey that you think is so fascinating, and how good of a prospect is he?
Yeah, I mean, he is a fascinating prospect because on the high end, if you're like trying to be super optimistic, you're looking at a guy who's 6'8", 6'9", who can just hit the hardest shots possible, right? If you imagine in a playoff game, you need a bucket, at the end of the game, you're throwing it to a 6'9" guy who can create that shot and hit it over a defender, pretty much regardless of size. That is the potential for him. With, I think, the underrated aspect of his game being that he was actually pretty impactful defensively, when he was locked in. With his size and his athleticism at that size, he can be a pretty impactful defender too. Obviously, there's a lot of risk in terms of his shot selection. He doesn't have much of a handle. He's not playmaking for others. I think there's the range on his upside versus his ceiling versus his floor, I think, is what is causing so much conversation. And also, I think a little bit of it is anchoring to, he was a top 3, maybe top 2 prospect coming into the college season, for the past year. And so a lot of that, that kind of stigma might be staying with him in terms of people saying, well, how could he fall out of the top 5? He was this great prospect coming into the season.
Well, I mean, so you hit on the Jazz possibly, say Ace drops a couple. His versatility is absolutely electric. I see teams actually trading up to possibly be in the market.
There's a lot of rumors of that too.
Right, and so you kind of hinted at that with the Jazz possibly leveraging their position and trading a couple to get more assets. So, being the Jazz guy here, what are the Jazz going to do here? What are they looking for? If you have the opportunity to get an Ace Bailey, okay, do we jump at that? Do you leverage that and get more opportunity to get other players, as we talked about just now, as you talked about with CBA, cap room, looking for a more full roster of capabilities? What is the Jazz move here? We do need an ace player. I think we need that. I keep saying we. The Jazz need that.
Lakers fans said Jazz or we. I love it.
Alex, if you cut that, I will cut you.
That's right up there with the excitement he has for BYU basketball, the promise.
But, what are the Jazz going to do here in this situation? Or not what they're going to do, because we don't know. We're not Danny Ainge. But, what should they do here in this situation? Say they do have the opportunity to get an ace. What are they going to do here in this situation to improve what they've been doing the last couple of years so Utah fans aren't subjected to these terrible seasons?
Yeah, I mean, I think obviously that's the golden question. I think, from my perspective, and this is only my perspective, if Ace Bailey is available and obviously Austin Ainge, Danny, the front office has way more intel than we do, but if you have good enough intel and you believe in your foundation as an organization, top to bottom, to draft a guy like Ace and maybe, fight through some of the early struggles as he's adapting his game and growing his game. I think if he falls to 5, I would take the swing personally on the talent, just on the talent alone. I think there's a scenario where, I think it's not, super uncommon for people to actually view some of the other prospects in that range as higher prospects than Ace Bailey. I know there's certain people who love VJ Edgecombe. A lot of analysts, and a lot of Jazz fans, I think, on Twitter really love Trey Johnson, Con Knippel. Like, these are guys that the Jazz might evaluate as better prospects in their opinion, in which case how the board unfolds going up to 5 will dictate a lot of it. But then again, when you're looking at who's available versus where you're picking, and if you think someone else is a better prospect that might be available later on, that's when the trade scenarios might come into play. But, the question of Ace, I think if he's there at 5 and you have good enough intel and good enough belief in what you've got going on as an organization, I think it's worth the swing at 5. I wouldn't necessarily say that at 3, depending on the team. Obviously, Philly's in kind of a win-now mode. But for the Jazz, I think, the swing at 5 does make more sense.
Of course, unless the Jazz make a move, they're going to pick at 5, and they have to really depend on what the Sixers and the Hornets decide to do. But you look at a lot of mock drafts for what that's worth. Trey Johnson seems to be that name that lands with the Jazz the most in these scenarios. What can you tell us about Trey Johnson, and why would he be a good fit with the Jazz?
I mean, the number one thing to talk about with Trey Johnson is the three-point shooting. I think given his combination of off the catch and off the dribble three-point shooting, he is probably the best shooter in the draft, at least, out of first-round prospects. I think Con Knippel is probably a better, catch-and-shoot, maybe traditional shooter, but Trey Johnson can shoot off the dribble at an elite rate. And I think when you look at that skill set, one being a bankable thing that can keep you in the league for a long time, but also for a Jazz team like Will Hardy, they run a lot of off-ball actions to get three-pointers. They take a lot of three-pointers. If you have a guy who can come in and shoot 40% from 3 on his shot diet, which sometimes includes some tough shots, and he's not afraid of the moment either as a tough shot maker, that's where the appeal starts with. There's other aspects of him. I think his playmaking is underrated. It's not like his number one skill set by any means on the offensive end, but he can make some reads and some good passes. And there's a little bit potentially more upside with him, I think, because he does have pretty good athletic tools. He's a good wingspan. He had a good vertical. He's 6'6". There's some size there. So if he gets stronger and fills out his frame, and can get downhill a little bit more. He's not necessarily a downhill driver as an offensive player. He's more perimeter oriented. I think that's where you talk about Trey Johnson as a guy at 5 with a lot of exciting offensive potential.
Is Con Knippel and Jeremiah Fears really in play for the Jazz at number 5?
I think so. I think Con Knippel is interesting because, the analytics love him. He kind of does a little bit of everything outside of his shooting. He can play make a little bit. He's not a plus defender, but I don't think he's really as bad as people think he is. I think there is a lot of kind of subjecting him to he's just this white guy who's a little bit slow and unathletic, so he's terrible on defense. I don't think that's the case, really. But, there obviously are questions of, not only his upside as a player, but also his situation at Duke was really good, right? He's playing next to Cooper Flagg. They have Kaman Malawach, at center, who's also projected top 10 pick. There was an environment for him to thrive. But again, he's an elite shooter who can do more than that on the offensive end. So I think when you look at the skill set and what he's produced so far, you have to consider him. And Fears is very interesting because he's kind of the opposite, where he can't shoot threes right now. He was under 30% this year, but he's almost the opposite of Trey Johnson. He just gets downhill. He has a great handle. He can definitely pass, and he can he can create an advantage on offense. Now he needs to be able to shoot the 3, right? The Jazz fans are familiar with, Isaiah Collier, getting downhill, but not necessarily being able to shoot threes. And he has question marks because he's small. He's a 6'2" guard. Question marks on the defensive end. So I think all these prospects, you're looking at key strengths and key weaknesses, and you have to kind of filter through to see what, you value the most.
That was a great breakdown of the draft, which is coming up on Wednesday. We're excited for it. Jazz fans are excited for it. Can't wait to see what they decide to do between now and Wednesday. Eric Spyropoulos covers the Utah Jazz for NBA.com. Eric, thanks so much. Appreciate it. Always great having you on. We'll do it again soon.
Thanks for having me.
Eric Spyropoulos. Good breakdown of everything going on with the Jazz with the draft. Those are some of the names. Yeah, A lot of things could happen, though, between now and Wednesday. There's a lot of, I don't know what's going on with the league right now, and it may end up being nothing. Like it usually ends up being a nothing burger, but there's a lot of buzz around the league, Sly, that trades are going to happen. There's going to be a lot of movement because teams are strapped for cash. There's no free agents out there, and the only way to get better is through trades. So I think you're going to see a lot of fireworks between now and Wednesday. We already saw Desmond Bain move in a blockbuster deal from Memphis to Orlando. So I think there's going to be even more coming up here in the next few days. All right, we got to take a break. When we come back, it's the NFL Blitz. We're going to take a look at the 2026 NFL Draft, and some local guys are mentioned as prospects at each position. We will get to that next. JJ and Alex, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
All the latest news and notes from the league and the locals in the NFL. JJ and Alex bring you the NFL Blitz on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
The NFL Blitz begins right now, but first let me say this. Do you have a product that you're passionate about? Do you own a business and you want more people to know about it? Are you looking to break through, get more clients, sell more products? We're here to help you do that. We would love to endorse your product or your business on our show. It's simple. All you have to do is text JJ to 57500, and our sales staff will take care of the rest. Again, text JJ to 57500. You can ask Doug Smith Mitsubishi, IBEW, Salt Lake City Fat Loss. All of our partners have benefited tremendously from reaching you, the viewers, on this show. If you own a business, if you have a product, you can join the club, and you're going to benefit in a big way. We're going to help you make money. So join us again. Text JJ to 57500. It's JJ to 57500. All right, let's get to the NFL Blitz. The NFL Draft in 2026. It's never too early to talk NFL Draft. Maybe it's a little early. But we're going to do it. Why? Because there's some local prospects on this list that ESPN.com has put out. So some writers at ESPN.com ranked the top 5 prospects at every position in college football according to their draft position potential. And as you're rolling through a lot of the usual suspects at different positions. But as I'm scrolling through and I get down to offensive line, offensive tackle specifically, boom, Sly, Utah is mentioned not once, but twice, because Utah has 2 of the top 5 offensive tackles in the nation. At number 4 on one list is Spencer Fano. At number 5 is Caleb Lomu. Another writer has Spencer Fano as the number 1 offensive tackle NFL prospect in the country. Surprised by that?
No. Spencer's just so athletic. I think he can play so many different positions. You know, we covered him in high school. And, you know, he played offense until the state championship game. He went and played defense. And I'm like, why is he not playing defense? Spencer Fano is so athletic. He could play tight end. Here in this offense.
He caught a pass on a 2-point conversion, right?
But just that, I mean, he has the body to be so athletic. And more or less, I've seen guys like that in the NFL that's so athletic. They came from the tight end position and converted over to the tackle position. He's going to be a tackle his entire life and be that athletic. He's big, he's fast, he's smart. He can play all styles of offense, from downhill running to get out and run, the big dancing bear style. Absolutely love that guy. I actually didn't notice him, or maybe I forgot he cut his hair in the spring game, and I go in an interview and I'm just like, Who the hell are they bringing me right now? I was like, oh, it's bald Spencer. Anyways, the dude is just awesome. Him being on this list is tremendous, and it shows investing in recruitment. And he was one of the highly recruited guys in the country his senior year in Utah. Doing what it needed to do to get Logan and him here was huge. And I just hope that pays off here this next year or two for Utah.
Caleb Lomu. He's overshadowed a little bit by what Spencer's done.
Right.
But Caleb's on this list, too, at number 5 on one list and 4 on the other. Top 5 offensive tackle?
Yeah.
He has first-round potential as well.
Well, yeah, aggressive. We understand how important these offensive line positions are, just as much as these athletic and quarterback positions, to have a versatile offensive lineman. And when you look at Caleb, you look at young aggression, right? And now that he's got another year under Harding, he gets to harness that aggression and understand how to utilize it, how to be under control as an offensive lineman. As an alumni, any alumni offensive lineman have to be proud of having 2 potential first-round offensive linemen here at the University of Utah.
Moving on down a list, we get to defensive tackle, and another name of local interest pops up. It's Keanu Tanavasa. One of the writers has him as number 3 on their top 5 list. You know Keanu well and watched him play. Mm-hmm. What are your thoughts on his potential as an NFL defensive tackle?
I got to look at all these other guys on this list, but Keanu's great. When he plays, he's dominant.
Yeah.
There's not many people that can hold. I've been around a lot of defensive tackles who've had great potential and helped me out as linebackers. They eat up these blockers so I can fly free. Those are the best D linemen you want, and Keanu's one of those guys. Keanu gets it done, man. He's going to a good system down there with Hill and Gary Anderson and Kalani Sataki, and I think he's going to have a tremendous year at BYU. Of course, you got to make sure he stays healthy and be able to contribute on the field. But when he's on the field, you're going to get you a baller.
No doubt, he's proven, and that's a big pickup for BYU in the offseason and a big loss for Utah. Down at safety, shocker, a Utah safety with NFL potential. Morgan Scalley, you've done it again. Teo Johnson, ranked as the 5th best safety with NFL as an NFL prospect by one of the writers. Your thoughts on Teo? I know that they liked him when they found him and recruited him, and now he's developed into a player that's going to get NFL attention this season. What kind of season do you expect from Teo Johnson?
I expect it all. I think he's going to have a tremendous season. I think he's going to be first-team all-conference, team captain.
Wow.
I just think he's ready and primed for that. He was primed and ready when he was a freshman, man. Just talking to him, understanding his journey from being an offensive guy, quarterback, to transitioning to the nickel position. And you know that nickel position is one of the hardest positions on the football field. And he just thrived at that. When we had Sione Vake and Cole Bishop back there, and he was just as effective as those guys. And now he's going to have another year at the safety position under his belt. They had a very struggle-filled year last year, so he's had that ups and downs and being able to understand where this defense can be when you struggle, when you have a struggling offense, or where this defense can be when you have an outstanding offense. And so expecting big things out of him this year. I think it's going to be tremendous. Definitely worthy of being on this list. He's not afraid to tackle anybody, big, small, whatever. He'll throw his face in there and make it happen. And you've seen how athletic he is, from returning blocked field goals to returning interceptions, getting sideline to sideline. He is definitely worth the praise, and I can't wait to see what he's able to do this year.
So some good news there for some local NFL prospects. We'll see how they play this season. Real quick, one more. We got to get to Shedeur Sanders. Apparently he's got a lead foot. Twice cited for speeding this month. Big deal or not?
I listened to a couple things this week about it, and a lot of people are making more of a big deal. I kind of read the headline, and I'm like, why is this a headline?
Because it's Shedeur Sanders.
Exactly. And so, look, no, it's not a big deal for me.
101's not great.
Well, I've driven one.
How many of us,
guys,
when we were stupid kids, hit 101?
You stupid kids? There's grown adults. I bet you Tyreek Hill drives 130 every day.
Yeah.
Hey, look, personally, I've been to Miami, as I told you.
Yes.
Absolutely love it. With some friends, stuff. I've driven 135, 140 on the freeway. I'm letting you guys know this. Don't do it.
The statute of limitations up on.
Yeah, it's definitely
on
up. It was about 10 years ago.
Do you need to hit the dump button for his own sake?
It was about 10 years ago. It's definitely gone. But
sure.
I'm just saying, people, they've done that. I know it's unsafe. I know it's this and that. But for it to be a headline like this, it's got to be because it's Shedeur. And he's going to learn from it. Give him his ticket and move on. You act like nobody's got a speeding ticket before. Come on, man. Like I get it. I'm not gonna put as much stuff as that guy has to deal with, as far as pressure, as far as questioning, 5th round draft pick, whatever he has to do. You guys gonna freaking blow up our airways over a speeding ticket?
You know what I'm gonna say? Like,
here's my problem. People try to do the Henry Ruggs comparison. Henry Ruggs was drunk.
There was alcohol involved in
He
that.
was drunk
That's
from a club at 2 a.m. That is very different than what Shedeur's doing.
Yeah.
Very different.
Yeah,
not a good comparison.
Night and day difference. Come on now. What I think Shedeur's actually handled all this really well. And he's a lightning rod. He's Coach Prime's son, all that stuff. I get it. And they've chose to be a little bombastic, and they like to puff up their chests, but they have a lot of confidence, and good for them.
Right.
Don't we all wish we had a lot of confidence? But I will say that he has handled this whole situation since then really well. He didn't ask to be put under a microscope the way he has been,
Right.
but he's handled it pretty well outside of hitting 101 and getting cited for speeding.
Right.
If that's the worst thing Shedeur Sanders ever does while he's playing in the NFL, whoopity-doo, right? For all I could tell, other than, being a rich kid, right? Which he is, let's be honest.
Right.
And you can get a little arrogant and stuff with that.
Right. He's not the first person.
He doesn't have like these character issues that that people want to project or say.
Right.
I think he's going to do well in the NFL. I think he's going to surprise some people and actually the falling in the draft thing is going to be a blessing in disguise for him because it's taking a lot of pressure off of him. A lot of pressure. If he would have been the number 2 overall pick in the draft, I don't think he would have been successful in the NFL. I really don't believe you. I believe that he would have been successful. You're now taking in the 5th round to the Cleveland Browns. Like, there's no pressure on him.
Right.
And he's going to a place where they desperately need a quarterback.
Right.
And now he's got time to develop into that quarterback. Right. We talk about it's not when you're drafted, but where you're drafted.
Right.
I know Cleveland sucks, but I think he got in the best position he possibly could be in, considering the circumstances.
Well, he's surrounded in a good quarterback circle, a good quarterback position room, and all I got to say is, can they have a good quarterback guy come there and help teach him, right? If, say he had a Brian Johnson type of quarterback mentor these next 2 years to be able to make sure that he understands the game, understands how to prepare, understands all of this, I think he would be great. As I said, I thought he had second to third round grade potential for me.
Sure.
But for him to drop to the 5th, whoever's getting him at that point, I think the Steelers missed on getting him in the 4th and even trading up in the 5th to get him. As soon as he got drafted, then you go draft the Ohio State guy?
He's not anywhere close to as talented as Shedeur Sanders.
Right after that?
And you're paying that guy not as much. I mean, the amount of money you're paying between the two is minimal.
If you know business, you go get Shedeur.
100%.
For marketability.
They didn't want the Sanders circus. That's all. They didn't want it.
But here's the thing. The Steelers can control
But they want the Aaron
that.
Rodgers circus?
Exactly. Say it. Say it again for the guy in the back who missed it.
The Steelers didn't want the Sanders circus, but they're okay with the Aaron Rodgers circus.
All right, mister. I can't listen to Bluetooth headphones. I can only do wired headphones. Yeah, all right. That's more of a headline than speeding. Anyway.
Yeah.
I digress.
Not sure what the Steelers are doing, and you or yourself are our Steelers, so nobody knows better than you. So that is your NFL Blitz on this Friday. Great stuff. We got to take a break. When we come back, best and worst next. JJ and Alex, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Wrapping up the hour with our picks for the best and worst moments on today's show. As JJ and Alex want to hear your best and worst of the day.
Welcome back, JJ and Alex, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. It's time for Best and Worst. It's brought to you by Doug Smith Dealership. Our friends at Doug Smith, Dodge, Ram, Chevrolet, Subaru, Kia, and Linden. And now my favorite dealership, Mitsubishi and American Fork. Let's start with the worst. Kevin Durant refutes DeMarcus Cousins' allegations of locker room fistfights during the Suns' disappointing season. I feel like if something like that happened, it'd be pretty hard to bottle that up, right?
Yeah.
What's DeMarcus Cousins doing?
About? No, what are you talking about? People have fist fights all the time. People don't know about it.
You think that you think it's possible that the Suns had fist fights in their locker room?
I'm actually more surprised that
How would that not get
didn't.
out?
Because it's locker room. That happens all the time.
Professional NBA players getting in fist fights in their locker room?
I'm sure it's not as rough as the NFL players, but
Look, I'm saying I'm not saying it's not possible. I'm just saying, like, wouldn't word leak out about that
no. You know how many fist fights we had?
in 2025?
Yeah. It's all internal. The only reason that people knew about fist fights for us in football is because we had open training camps where
Well, you
a
were
lot
in
of
the
people
heat of the
saw.
moment on a football field.
Hey, basketball gets heated too. You
That's
ain't
all
seen
for
these,
sure.
You ain't seen these old
yeah.
guys on the court get angry?
I mean, we all know
That's
about
probably why I
Draymond
know.
Green and Jordan Poole.
Right. But they had recordings. If it's in the locker room,
And
there's
that was leaked.
Nobody's having cameras in the locker room. Hey, that is not a far-fetched thing. And it happens all the time. The problem is DeMarcus Cousins trying to act like that's first of all, I'm pretty sure he was in tons of fist fight stuff. But to act like that's a rarity and that's a key issue behind whatever happened with the Suns is what's more surprising to me. But fist fights happen all the time. Grown men, come on.
It would have been amazing if it had, but Katie said it never happened. So
Of course he's going to say that. I'm glad he didn't say that.
I guess we move on. Best. How about the Cubs welcoming back Sammy Sosa after a 20-year absence at Wrigley Field? I don't know. He's set to be inducted into the Cubs Hall of Fame this year. I know it's been weird with Sammy throughout baseball, right? How do you process and handle how amazing that home run thing was, but then learning the truth about it all and having to process it? I think it's taken some time, but I'm glad to see that Sammy's back. I think that we have to reevaluate how we look at that era. Look, were they cheating? If you want to call it that, sure. So what? You don't think there was cheating in 1935 and 1955 and 1975 in Major League Baseball? Why are we judging that era of baseball players differently because they were juicing?
They learned it from somewhere.
They played the game. It happened.
Right.
Their records happened. Their stats happened. You're just going to sweep it under the rug and pretend it didn't exist?
What's funny is there's a comedian who said something like that, where it's like, yeah, they were juicing. Who cares?
We were entertained, weren't we?
Exactly. It's like, how much fun did we have seeing Mark McGwire, Sammy Sosa, Barry just jacking these balls up every weekend? That was good baseball. That's probably when the ratings were highest for MLB.
That felt like the apex of baseball, and it's been downhill ever since as far as interest and growth.
I mean, if that's the case, the guy was just like, why don't we just create a league where it's known, it's good, and we could just do that?
Like the All-Steroid Olympics. Remember that on Saturday Night Live?
Yes.
The guy who goes to he goes to deadlift and his arms come completely off. Is that what we're going to get to? All-Steroid baseball. Let's do it.
You want to do it. This is where it's at.
Okay. Welcome back, Sammy. All right, that's a wrap for this segment. We got more coming up next. JJ and Alex, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.